48 years old, and not to say that age is the thing that dictates what you rap about.
Hi, André.
Hello.
Can you believe it? That is André 3000, the legend who once blew up America, now wandering with a flute like a hermit, a hip-hop icon, now looking almost like a homeless man. What on earth is going on? André is the soul of OutKast, the owner of 6 Grammy Awards, and half of the best-selling rap album in American history, Speaker Box. A legend the entire industry believed would fall off under the brutal laws of hip-hop. But he broke that curse in a way no one expected. A punch thrown behind the scenes. A dismissive wave at the entire industry. A heated clash with Big Boy that left him with no way back to the stage. Why would a saint of hip-hop stand before the world and lose confidence like that? What hidden rule really pulled André 3000 away from everything? Why does he despise the artistic world so much? Keep watching, because the answer to what just happened to André 3000 is not just a confession. It is a truth powerful enough to change how the entire world sees this legend. 1. A difficult childhood and the early scars of André 3000. André 3000, whose real name is André Laurent Benjamin, was born on May 27, 1975 in Atlanta, Georgia. His parents divorced when André was still very young, leaving mother and son clinging to each other in the old apartment blocks of East Point. His mother, Sharon Benjamin, a woman working in real estate, but so poor she could not even afford the rental deposit, always said one sentence. André never forgot, "You deserve better than what I have." But poverty was still poverty. The two of them moved constantly to the point André became used to packing up and going like a scheduled ritual. One time Sharon said, "Our neighborhood is probably the poorest in Atlanta." André just smiled, but the child understood everything. The only thing she could give her son was the chance to escape fate. So Sharon did something that made the entire neighborhood look at her like she had lost her mind. She enrolled André in the Minority to Majority program, sending him to wealthy schools in Buckhead. A kid from the poorest block going to school with the richest kids in the city. That contrast was the quiet current that nourished André's different artistic mindset later. At school, André was the boy who had nothing but imagination. And in the neighborhood, he was teased for dressing strangely and having unusual hair. A child standing between two worlds, but belonging to neither. Then destiny arrived at Tri-Cities High School, the arts school where André met Antoine Patton, whom the world would later know as Big Boy. They were completely different from everyone else. Preppy odd clothes, strange music, strange thoughts. But music was the glue that held them together. Both were obsessed with the bold hip-hop of De La Soul, a tribe called Quest Brand Nubian, and the 70s funk of George Clinton or Sly and the Family Stone. They began writing raps, recording mixtapes, trying every possible way to turn their thoughts into sound. At first they chose the name 2 Shades Deep, then the Misfits, but both were already taken. When they looked up the word misfit, they saw the synonym OutKast. Both burst out laughing. Yes, that's us. And they changed the C to a K as a way of challenging the world. No need to fit in, just be different. Their teen years were also full of rebellion. André even dropped out after 11th grade, leaving his mother sad and helpless. But their ambition was so big, nothing could stop them. Atlanta was booming with TLC and Criss Cross, but it still lacked the true voice of the southern streets. Then the opportunity came. They were introduced to Rico Wade, the gatekeeper of Dungeon Family. After a 10-minute nonstop rap, the two boys looking possessed, Rico immediately knew, this is exactly what we need. He pulled them into the dungeon like pulling 2 raw coals into a forge. But when he brought OutKast to meet L.A. Reid, the most powerful mogul in Atlanta at the time, everything collapsed in one sentence. Nothing special. A single dismissive gesture was enough to close the entire door of their barely opened career. But that very blow created something they never expected. It made them sharper, more aggressive, and stranger. André started writing differently. Big Boy started flowing differently. They no longer tried to imitate New York or the West Coast. They began becoming themselves. And finally, when OutKast returned for the second audition, L.A. Reid listened again. He saw that this was an entirely new future of hip-hop beating its wings, and they were signed. And that was only the opening chapter of the legend. 2. The explosion of Dirty South when glory turned into a curse. After signing with LaFace, André and Big Boy were like two kids entering Atlanta's Sound amusement park for the first time. Dungeon Darp Purple Dragon Bosstown Doppler. They recorded anywhere they could turn a microphone on. The studio to them felt like home. And it made sense, it was where they ate, slept, wrote music, grew up, then exploded. And the first explosion was Southern Playalistic Idyllic Music, their 1994 debut album that shot straight to number 2 on Billboard, praised everywhere, transforming Atlanta from an exception zone into a bright red dot on the map of American rap. LaFace saw something big forming. So they opened their wallets, opened their doors, and opened every creative limit for OutKast. Just do it. Whatever you want, we got you. And that is always how grown-ups accidentally push young prodigies into a marathon no one teaches them how to stop. When they started Atlians, André and Big Boy suddenly turned in a different direction, a direction no one predicted. They abandoned cornrows, swore off brushing their hair, refused to pretend to be cool, refused to maintain any image for radio or the media. Big Boy looked like a South Side warrior. André looked like a young monk descending from the mountain. Two people, two frequencies, two worlds. Yet every time they stepped into the studio, what they created blended in a strange way, the kind only OutKast could make. Atlians came out number 2 on Billboard, 350,000 copies. In the first 2 weeks, then double platinum. Critics called it the sound of the future. But to André, the praise felt like applause that lasted too long in a closed room, enough to suffocate a sensitive soul. Aquamini, 1998. The third album and the milestone where OutKast moved from rising stars to the guys who changed the rules. Number 2 on Billboard Platinum after exactly 2 months, then double platinum. Aquamini sounded like a universe-expanding philosophy, jazz funk, storytelling, sci-fi spirituality. André at this point was creating at a level that was dangerous. Dangerous for himself. Dangerous because his talent was running faster than his heart could handle. And just as life's familiar law goes, when you stand too high, you become a target. The Rosa Parks lawsuit erupted right when OutKast was glowing the brightest. A cold slap across André's face. Just a song title, just a harmless hook line. Yet it pulled him into the center of the biggest civil rights controversy of that era. Even though the lawsuit was later dismissed, and much of the story remains blurry, to André, hearing his name tied to a cultural icon in a negative way was enough to make his mind shut down. A sensitive artist always fears hurting others, and André was exactly that type of person. But instead of slowing down, OutKast accelerated. They bought Bobby Brown's old studio and renamed it Stankonia, a word André came up with in a creative frenzy. Stank meaning funky plutonia, another world. It was not just a studio, it was a declaration. From here on, our sound does not belong to Earth, and that was exactly true. From Southern Playalistic Idyllic Music to Atlians to Aquamini to Stankonia, OutKast threw into the market a string of albums that any rap group would take a lifetime to achieve even half of. Peak after peak, gold after gold. Big Boy soared higher than ever. And André, he soared far. Far from the street rapper version the public wanted him to maintain. Far from the stage lights heating up. Far from himself. But everything is beautiful, only while they are still ordinary young men. Once the spotlight begins collecting its debt, André and Big Boy could not escape that rule either. 3. The truth about their relationship. The higher André climbed, the more he felt himself slipping away from music. It sounds like a paradox, but if you look deeply into who he is, you will see it was inevitable. André changed at a dizzying speed, so fast that Big Boy, the person who had been with him since the days of eating instant noodles in the dungeon, the person who wrote every rap verse alongside him, like two kids believing hip-hop would save their lives, sometimes could not keep up. One day, André walked into the studio wearing snow boots in the middle of a Georgia summer. The next day, he showed up in a monkey fur outfit, as if he had run straight out of a 1973 funk movie into real life. Another time, a silver wig on his head reflected the lights like a piece of trapped moonlight. The press called him eccentric. But if you looked one breath deeper, you would see those outfits were not attention stunts. They were André's mind full of colors, layers, and beautiful chaos worn on his body. And the clearest symbol of the rift between the two was not a fight, not a breakup. It was two tour buses. Yes, you heard that right. On the same tour, they split into two different buses. Big Boy's bus was a true party bus, blasting music, smoking, drinking, loud conversations, having the time of their lives. André 3000's bus was what people jokingly called the church bus. The vibe was peaceful and wholesome. He explained that there were simply too many people on Tour Dancer's band crew, so they had to split into two vehicles. But that was enough for fans to notice. From that moment on, people like to say geniuses must pay with loneliness. But the truth goes deeper. André did not distance himself from Big Boy out of resentment. André distanced himself because the mask of André 3000, the legendary rapper, began suffocating him. A man who once exploded on stage now feared the lights, feared applause, feared performing a version of himself that he no longer was. At the peak, he felt the very musical world that once worshipped him had become foreign. André no longer found creative spark. It was not writer's block, but an existential crisis. He did not know what he was living for, did not know whether music was keeping him or pushing him away. The pressure of fame, enormous expectations, and an overwhelming sense of being lost pushed him away from the studio. Little by little, André withdrew from hip-hop and found his way into acting fashion, painting things that helped him breathe again, things that gave him peace. While Big Boy kept burning full force, André faded from the stage. OutKast at that point was only half. The saddest part, they were still brothers. Big Boy said it directly in 2012. "That is my brother. He comes to my house. My kids and his kids play games together. We listen to music and catch up on everything." A sentence as light as a breeze, yet strong enough to silence all ugly rumors. They did not need to stand on the same stage to prove their bond. They had known each other since 10th grade. That kind of brotherhood does not disappear just because they are not making music anymore. But deep friendship cannot save one reality: they were standing at two creative crossroads. André wanted to act, wanted fashion, wanted to experiment with jazz, wanted to try pop, wanted to explore sounds that did not even have names yet. Big Boy wanted to keep OutKast true to OutKast. Rap had to stay. Rap bars had to stay sharp flow, had to run like fire. One man sought a new universe. One guarded the old temple. This difference was not right or wrong. It was simply no longer parallel. Then came creative energy. André began losing inspiration for rap. He said it clearly: no confidence, no inspiration, no music playing in his head. Meanwhile, Big Boy still wrote every bar like it was oxygen. One was empty, one was full. How could they balance that? And then came the part fans know least: mental health. André fell into an existential crisis. Fame became a glass cage. And music, the very thing that once saved him, began to hurt him. Big Boy had to carry the burden of guarding OutKast's legacy alone, keeping the flame that both of them were supposed to share. Add to that the backstage incidents few talk about, like in 2015 when they were invited to perform on television. They only needed to trim 20 seconds of the song, but André refused, not out of arrogance, but because he could not stand the feeling of bending his art to fit a broadcast slot. Big Boy tried to convince him, but it was useless. Another crack appeared. Even so, they never spoke badly of each other. But fans were different. The world prefers drama over truth. Shaky, blurry backstage clips spread showing them arguing, even avoiding eye contact at a show. People believed it immediately, because tragedy is always more exciting than a peaceful truth. But the truth about their relationship was never hatred. 4. The love trap. André 3000's love life was never peaceful. It all began with Erykah Badu. Their relationship was once considered one of the most spiritual romances in 90s soul and hip-hop. Two young artists, two souls searching for a way out of their own chaos, meeting at the right time, and missing each other at the right time. When they broke up, André once said, "It changed me forever." There are certain kinds of pain that do not need shouting, do not need scandal. Only one person leaving is enough to make you never look at the world the same way again. After that breakup, André was not just sad. He fell into a crisis, as if his entire belief system had been unplugged. The way he lived, the way he thought about music, even the way he viewed himself, all shifted. It was the first time the world saw signs of a genius drifting off his orbit. But no one expected that behind that private heartbreak, a much bigger storm was waiting. And the first storm came in the form of a lawsuit no one imagined would reach the Supreme Court. Rosa Parks sued OutKast. Not an ordinary person, not a fellow artist, but the greatest civil rights icon in America. The song Rosa Parks on the Aquemini album was sued by her family for allegedly using her name incorrectly and even disrespectfully, since the lyrics referenced partying and street life unrelated to her legacy. Imagine that happening right when you're trying to prove you are not just that eccentric rapper in a monkey fur outfit, but a serious artist trying to create something meaningful. The public split in half. They were disrespectful, versus it is just artistic expression. But André stood at the center of the storm, and although OutKast later settled and paid for educational programs that wound to his honor, never healed. Before he could breathe, the second scandal arrived at the very place that should have been the brightest moment of his career, the 2004 Grammys. OutKast performed "Hey Ya," a moment that should have been glorious. But André walked onto the stage dressed as a neon green Native American warrior surrounded by teepees. Classic André, colorful, unconventional, unlike anyone else. Except, indigenous culture is something you cannot touch if you do not understand it. The Native American community was furious. They protested. They spoke out. And CBS, along with the Recording Academy, had to issue a public apology. André did not mean harm, but in the eyes of the public, not meaning it is never enough to erase a scratch. And people said again, he really is strange. Those repeated comments said, enough times become shackles around the neck of a sensitive artist. Then came the final blow, small but piercing. André was arrested for driving 109 mph, a speed no normal person would choose, especially in a 65 mph zone. His mugshot was everywhere. Some people laughed. Some criticized he is losing control. No one asked, is he okay? No one noticed that this was just a man trying to run fast, as if speed could make his heart feel less tight. And you know the strangest thing, many people today do not even know. These things happened. Newer OutKast fans have never heard about the Rosa Parks lawsuit. They do not know André was criticized so heavily CBS had to apologize. They have never seen the 2009 mugshot that once made everyone worry he was falling apart. That is why the video title must ask, how do people not know? Because André disappeared too long, appeared too little, and carried himself too gently for scandals that once shook his entire career to now look like quiet ripples at the bottom of a lake. But when you put these pieces together, you see a clear downfall, a heart hurting from a broken love, a sensitive soul misunderstood by the public, and a man trying to escape the spotlight while being pulled back by the very light that once lifted him to the top. That is the moment André's story shifted from glory to gray, and the world had no idea what it had just overlooked. 5. When greatness creates a pressure no one can carry. Stankonia is always mentioned as the moment OutKast touched the sky, but if you look closely, you will see that it was also the moment the ground, under André, 3,000 feet, began to crack. A familiar Hollywood paradox. The higher you fly, the colder the wind becomes. And for André, greatness was not a gift, it was a weight. A pressure so heavy that even someone sharp, intelligent, and sensitive like him could not carry it. When Stankonia was released, everyone thought OutKast had stepped into a land of absolute freedom. The album title was not just an imaginary place, it felt like a mental territory. A place where André and Big Boy were no longer bound by East Coast, West Coast, or any other rule. They walked straight into their own era. Ms. Jackson climbed to #1, an explosion not only for hip-hop, but for all of pop culture. Do you remember just the first few notes, and America already knew they were about to hear a historic apology? An apology, an entire generation, memorized. Then came B.O.B., a rap track that raced like a heart-beating 200 beats per minute. A musical experiment as wild as it was a declaration of freedom. But the irony was, That because it was too new, too modern, too different, many radio stations banned it outright. A peak rejected by the system itself. A victory that came with the feeling of being misunderstood. For André, that was the first sign that no matter how high he flew, he was still an outsider in the very world he helped shape. What the audience did not know was that during that period, André began to hate attention. It sounds strange, right? A star in the center of a storm of fame, who wanted to hide in the shadows. André was never born to stand in the spotlight. He was the kind of artist whose eyes alone could reveal his unease. That unease grew every time he stepped onto the stage. He performed live, but his mind drifted elsewhere. There were nights he stood in front of a sea of fans while feeling empty inside. André once said there were shows where he stood there mouth rapping, but his mind was in another world. When an artist's soul is no longer standing on the stage, that means a farewell has already been signed inside his heart. The more they toured, the more suffocated André felt. The crowds made his rhythm falter. The screaming made him feel as if he were being swept into a storm he could not control. A painful paradox, people saw him as a symbol of freedom, but inside, he was chained by that very freedom. Fame felt like a beautiful room with no exit. You cannot escape, but staying feels suffocating. Big Boy was fine, still enjoying the noise, still seeing the stage as his playground. But André was not. They stood on the same stage, but emotionally lived in two different worlds. That was the beginning of an inevitable split. Then the Super Bowl incident happened. This was the kind of invitation any artist would dream of. But for André, it was an exclamation point on their conflict. The NFL wanted OutKast to shorten their song to fit the broadcast schedule. André refused. To him, music was not something to cut. Cutting a song was like cutting its soul. So he said, no. A light word, but the price was heavy enough that Big Boy had to carry it. Millions of dollars evaporated. The whole world asked, why reject the Super Bowl? But they did not know André was exhausted, to the point he could no longer survive under the lights. Every breakup starts with something that seems small. People think OutKast ended because of art, but it did not. It ended because of exhaustion. André's exhaustion, Big Boy's helplessness, and a quiet growing distance neither could stop. What breaks the audience's heart the most is this: the moment Stankonia shined brightest was also the moment André began sinking into darkness. Did you notice? In songs like Gasoline, Dreams So Fresh, So Clean, or even tracks that sounded playful, there was always a hidden heaviness beneath the beat, a fatigue hidden behind smiles, a sigh disguised by perfect flow. Listeners at the time did not understand. Who could an album so vibrant that people only saw the light, not the cracks running through it? But André understood. Big Boy understood. And at the exact moment the world praised them the most. Both already knew something no one dared to say out loud. OutKast would never be the same again. 6. Masterpiece. But also a goodbye. There is a truth many people do not know. The Love Below was not just an album. It was like an artistic farewell letter. The moment André 3000 finally cut every rope tying him to the hip-hop world, and also the last time he stood with OutKast as a complete unit. The process of making that album felt like watching a man swim away from a crowd pushing through with his last breath to find himself again. André no longer wanted to play the role of genius rapper. He wanted to stand alone, make music from his heart, not from trends, not from pressure, not from stage lights. But just as he was about to break away, the label demanded it become a double album, forcing Big Boy to carry the other half so it would be easier to market and promote. André's rebellion was turned into a commercial product from the starting line. Yet strangely, The Love Below still kept its soul. It was not hip-hop, not at all. It was rock jazz, avant-garde, sleepless nights, panic attacks over love, and the sighs of someone who had looked too deeply into himself. The album was chaotic in the truest sense. Colors like a Wes Anderson film, emotions like a breakup diary blended with a Broadway musical thrown into Prince's studio. And within all that chaos, there was only one rap song. Everyone danced to Hey Ya. Everyone laughed, cheered, and called it the happiest song of the year. But when you listen closely, It is the most desperate song André ever wrote. He asked, "Why? Oh, why are we so in denial?" Like someone who had experienced enough pain to know that love was never stable. The melody glowed like neon, but the message was as dark as an empty room. That was André always hiding sadness inside the things that made others smile. Then came the day that should have been a milestone, his 30th birthday. Instead of celebrating, André locked himself in a silent hotel room, avoided calls, turned off every light. People said that was the night he finally understood he could not continue OutKast the way it was. The peak was no longer where he wanted to stand. It was too bright, too loud, too full of expectations. When Speakerboxx The Love Below won Grammy Album of the Year, the world celebrated. But the attentive ones noticed André no longer had the eyes of a victor. That album, though monumental enough to change history, was also his quiet farewell to hip-hop. A gentle, sad, honest goodbye that many people did not dare to look at directly. This was the moment the hero left the stage not because of failure, but because victory itself had made him someone he no longer recognized. 20 years. Disappearing and the return. No one noticed. Some artists disappear from the stage quietly, but leave a gap so large the world still feels like they are standing there. André 3000 is one of those people. A hip-hop legend, half of OutKast's soul. Yet he drifted away from the spotlight like a falling star fading over Atlanta. For 20 years, he did not truly disappear. He simply walked away from the places where the audience was used to looking for him. Perhaps if he had not hit several emotional rock bottoms, André would never have chosen to live lightly as air-thin as a flute note so distant that even loyal fans exclaimed, "Wait, when did he come back?" The truth is, André did not want to disappear. He just could not bear being pulled into a race his heart no longer wanted to join. When doctors told him he had social anxiety and hypersensitivity disorder, many people were shocked. But for André, those were just late labels for feelings he had carried all his life. The feeling of stepping on stage with a heart racing, as if running away, seeing crowds like oceans swallowing him whole, then returning to a hotel room where the world felt too loud and he felt too thin. It was not weakness. It was the weight the spotlight placed on a soul, born to observe, not to be observed. But his deepest pain did not come from rap. It came from real life. His father passed away. His mother passed away. The only two pillars of his life were gone, leaving a silence he did not know what to do with. He once said, "I have no anchor left. I am like a door with no hinges." When you lose the people who once called you home, no amount of fame can make the world meaningful. André began to fear aging, fear the cooling of his creativity, fear waking up one day and having nothing left to say. Rap, once his salvation, became pressure. The pressure to be great, to be sharp, to be the André 3000 the audience wanted. But the real André 3000 just wanted to breathe normally. And just when it seemed he would never touch real music again, Kanye called. That phone call pulled André back not to rap, but to say something he had never said. Life of the Party was not a verse, it was a letter. A whisper to his mother, to his father, to the shadows who had left this world. André wrote about them with such honesty that listeners felt like they were secretly reading a page from a diary hidden away for many years. That song made the entire world fall silent. It was one of the rare moments when we saw André not as a rapper, not as a legend, but simply as a man trying to say goodbye. Then he disappeared again. But this time, not to run away, but to find peace. And he found it in something unusual, the flute. No words, no pressure for bars, no expectations. Only breath and sound as soft as wind slipping through a crack in the door. From 2023 to 2024, André released a flute album, went on a flute tour, walked through airports with a flute in his hand, like a monk gently moving through modern life. No PR, no interviews, no noise. And the strange thing is many people did not even know. But for André, that was freedom. He no longer belonged to the rap world, nor to the spotlight. He was a drifting soul, finally finding a place where he did not have to play any role at all. And that is why we must ask, have you heard? What just happened to André 3000? How do people not know?
All data, analysis, and commentary in this video are presented based on information available at the time of production. The content is subject to change over time and should not be considered a definitive forecast. There is still so much more to explore: stories of resilience, legacy, and truth. Feel free to dive into some of our top recommended videos now appearing on your screen.